Thank you for being here. It's great to be here this morning, and we welcome you to Friends. Hard to believe it's August. Parents are excited, as we already said. I'm excited. Feels like fall outside, nice and cool. It's just great. So this morning, as we're in here, what a privilege. I was at Forest Home Family Camp this last week, and I got to be there and speak in the evenings. And my good friend, Dr. Greg Smalley, was there in the mornings. And I said to him a few weeks back, why don't you just stay and preach at our church? And Dr. Greg Smalley is the head of the marriage department, vice president at Focus on the Family in Colorado Springs. Him and his wife, Erin, have a great podcast. They're on the radio all the time, so you can hear him. He's got tons of books that he's written. And today, he is here with us, and so it's our privilege. I want you to do me a big favor. You're going to be sitting for a few minutes. So would you just stand to your feet, because we're going to give a huge, big Friends welcome. You're the best service, so show him your love. Would you welcome Dr. Greg Smalley as he comes to speak?
Thank you so very much. Well, what an honor and privilege it is to be with you this morning. As Matthew said, we got to hang out at Forest Home. What a fun experience it is to sit under his teaching and preaching, and so jealous that you get to do that week in and week out. So just an honor to be with you. I want to talk about connection within our relationship. So whether you're married or you're a parent, you have parents, you have loved ones. I mean, as you think about these important relationships in your life, I really want to share what I believe is the secret right out of the scriptures for the connection that we all long for. My wife Erin and I have been married now for 32 years, and I remember the exact moment that I knew that I wanted to marry her. We were sophomores at Grand Canyon University, Phoenix, sitting in the back of an Old Testament theology class about 7 a.m., which is not fair, because I got a little sleepy as we were running through Leviticus or something and fell sound asleep. The next thing I know, this girl sitting behind me who I'd never met, I didn't know her, she was a stranger to me, grabs my arm and violently shakes me awake. So I pop awake, look at her, kind of wipe the drool, and I'm just looking at her like, yeah? She goes, Greg, quick, you got to stand up. I went, I'm sorry, what? She goes, the professor, he just called on you. And I look at her confused, going, why? To do what? She goes, he just called on you to pray. Quick, you got to stand up and pray. So from the back of this huge class, I stand up and I started to pray out loud. Because why wouldn't I trust a complete stranger, right? So, well, as the laughter happened, I realized that she had just played a very mean joke on me. And as I sat down now, humiliated, I'll never forget looking at her, just staring, just thinking, wow, the fact that she could be that cruel to another human so impressed me that I remember thinking, now that's the girl I'm going to marry someday. So took me a few years, but we ended up walking down the aisle, became husband and wife, started to do life together. Erin, we started off here in La Mirada. So I was getting my doctorate from Biola University, and Erin was working as a labor and delivery nurse at a hospital locally, and we just got busy. We had our first daughter on our second wedding anniversary, and we just got busy. And we began to drift apart. And I'll never forget, we did all this great stuff and we loved each other. We went to church, loved the Lord. I mean, just all that stuff was going on. But we ended up just feeling so disconnected. I'll never forget the day that she came to me, just big tears, saying, yeah, I love you, I'm committed to you, but I feel like we're nothing more than married roommates. And in that moment, Erin and I had a choice. What were we going to do? Were we going to do something about this or just continue to drift further and further apart? So I really dug in. I said, no, I'm going to fix this and we'll figure this out. And so I began to read and ask advice from couples been married, many more years than us, and I started just to learn, and the advice was kind of the typical stuff that we would expect to hear in this situation. So between Aaron and I, we kept being told, well, you just need to talk more. And as an introvert, that just warms my heart. Great. We heard, well, you need quality time together. You need to go out on dates and have date night. Okay, we did that. I remember sitting in a concert hall. I surprised her for a date night with some tickets to a group in the mid-'80s when we were in high school that we loved. And we're just seated in this dark auditorium, just listening to this group. Well, they started to play a song that I'd forgotten that they sang. And Erin even leans over and she's like, oh, this is my favorite song. And I'm like, oh, me too. And then it was like, I just remembered this moment when we were dating and we're driving somewhere and the song came on and she gave me that look like, hey, let's pull over. And we just sat in some parking lot listening to the song and kissing. And I told Erin, man, I remember that moment. She smiled and went, man, what a great memory. But that wasn't me. That did not help our connection. I'm not going to lie. Still think it was her. But anyway, the stuff, the activities, shared activities. You need to develop a hobby together. Greg, you need to be more romantic and flirty. You need to have fun. You need to be laughing together. All that typical stuff, the activities that we hear about, that's how we create connection in our most important relationships. I'll tell you what, it wasn't working. It's good stuff. Nothing wrong with the stuff, the activities. It just wasn't getting us the kind of connection that we both longed for. It's super frustrating. Then I remember just listening to some guy kind of talk about the word intimate, and he unpacked that, and I'd never heard this before, that the word intimate, a Latin word made up of two other thoughts that come together. One is innermost, and then the other is to make known. So intimacy means to make known our innermost being. It's simply that recognizing this deep desire that God's placed within our hearts to be fully known and to be fully seen. See, what my wife, my kids, what they long for is to be fully known and to be fully seen. It's not about the activity, it's about that sort of experience. When you slow down the word intimacy, you get into me see. King David in Psalms 139 said, Lord, you have searched me and you know me. God desires that same experience. He wants us to open to him so that he can fully know us and see us. He can do that on his own, but he wants that as a choice relationally between us to have that sort of experience. That all of a sudden, man, the light bulbs went off, and I began to realize that true connection, intimacy, that deep friendship that we long for, it's not dependent upon the activities that we might figure out. It's actually to truly to have that sort of connection. It's to fully know and to fully see someone. The problem is that that's risky. You think about that. If I'm going to open up and be fully known by my wife or by my kids, that's risky. That requires a vulnerability. Well, okay, if I do open up to be fully seen, to be fully known, well, what will my loved ones, what will they do with that information? Man, if they could really see the good, the bad, the ugly, if my loved ones, my wife, let's say, could really see the hurts and the wounds, the scars, the mistakes, the poor choices, the sin, man, what would she do with that? Would she fully love me? Would she fully accept me? That creates one of the biggest paradoxes that we will face within relationship. God created us to be fully known, to be fully seen. To do that requires vulnerability. And for some, it's easier to stay behind a wall. It's too scary to be fully known and to be fully seen. The connection secret, though, that I've learned as I look back on that season, as I began to understand, well, okay, to fully know and to fully see my wife, it's never going to be the activities that will create her fully opening up like that. It's actually, my wife will open up, my kids will open up when they feel safe with me. The connection hack within our relationships is to create relationships, a marriage, a family, within our parenting, whatever relationship. The hack is to create those relationships that feel like the safest place on earth. Because I began to notice how often God tells us that He is safe. See, He desires that same kind of relationship with us, and then He goes out of His way to constantly remind us. Look at some of these verses, like in Proverbs 18:10, "For the name of the Lord is a strong tower, the godly run to Him and are safe. Keep me safe, O God, for in you I take refuge. In peace I will lie down and sleep, for you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety." And that's just a few of the verses that are scattered throughout the scriptures. God keeps reminding us, hey, between us, man, this is the safest relationship you will ever have. You can open to me. You can risk and be vulnerable with me because I will never leave you nor forsake you. I will love you with a love that will never end. And that creates that sort of safety that we're willing to do that. How do we then create relationships that feel like the safest place on earth? Because you and I are not God. He does that perfectly. It's hard for us because we're human. We make plenty of mistakes. As much as I want to be safe for my wife and for my children, for those that I love and care for, I'm still going to mess up. So how do we create relationships that feel safe? I'd encourage you, if you have your Bibles, to turn to Joel. So this is in the Old Testament. This is one of the prophets that we get to learn about. So Joel chapter 2, I want to focus in on verses 12 and 13. You'll see those verses up on the screen. So think about, the Israelites at this time in the scriptures, they just have rebelled against God. So God has sent His prophet Joel to bring the Israelites back into relationship with Him. And so what He says through Joel is, even now, declares the Lord, return to me with all your heart, with fasting and weeping and mourning. And then look at the words that He chooses to use. Rend your heart, not your garments. As you remember, the Israelites, to show their sorrow, to their humility, that we get what we've done and it's horrible and we're so sorry. Remember, they would often just rip and shred their clothing is a part of showing God, I'm so sorry. And what God is saying, actually, I could care less about your ripped clothing. Don't do that. He goes, what I rather would have is for you to rip open your heart, rend your heart. That means to tear open your heart, which again, in light of what we're talking about, that's risky. That requires vulnerability. If I'm going to rend my heart to the Lord, I've got to believe that He's safe. And what's amazing is that verse 13 describes God and why He's safe, why we can open our hearts to Him. He says, return to the Lord your God, for He is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger, and abounding in love. All those characteristics translate into a relationship that feels safe. We can trust God. We can open our heart to Him, is what Joel is saying. Because this God, man, He is so safe with you that you can do that. And again, you and I are not God. So how do we use those characteristics of God as ways to create safety within our relationships? So let's just unpack kind of those 4 words. Some of them are phrases, and talk about what that looks like then within our relationship. So let's first talk about this idea of slow to anger. 14 times within the scripture, we're being told to be slow to anger. Be quick to listen, be slow to speak and slow to anger. Slow to anger simply means long-suffering. Long-suffering means patience, but patience with difficult people. I like that thought because I'm a difficult person. I know it's hard for my wife and for my kids at times to extend me patience because of how difficult I can be. I remember 2 weeks into my marriage with Erin, we were just laying in bed one night, we're just talking. Erin goes, "Oh, hey, by the way, I've been meaning to ask you a question." "Yeah, sure." She goes, "How would you say that I'm doing as a wife?" I was like, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, I'm just curious. We've been married a whole 2 weeks, and yeah, how would you say that I'm doing as a wife?" It's not that hard of a question, is it? Well, what should I have said? Yeah, how am I doing as a wife? Great, wonderful, awesome, amazing, fantastic, best wife ever, hashtag whatever, not what I came up with. So she said, "How am I doing as a wife?" And I said, "Fine." Now, I was 2 weeks married, so I didn't understand that women, especially wives, hate this word, which is confusing because we use that word in a very positive way in our language. Fine jewelry is a great thing, right? Fine dining, fantastic restaurant, fine wine. Right? So that I told her, I said, "Erin, hey, that fine jewelry, fine wife. That's what I'm saying to you," which she didn't appreciate at all. As a matter of fact, she goes, "All right, look at it this way. 0 to 10, I know, right? 10 being the best job I could be doing as a wife, 0 being the worst. How would you rate me?" Again, this is not rocket science. This is not that complicated. What should I have said? Right, a 10, 11, 12, exactly. Not close to what I came up with, which I'm not sure why. What's wrong with me? Well, what's wrong with me is I can be a difficult person, even accidentally. So I say to her, "Honey, I am proud to tell you that you are a 9.3. How did I even write? I don't know. All I remember thinking is, well, Jesus would be the only perfect 10, and you're not Christ, so how far, I might as well have just said 1. That was the net effect. She starts crying. We're arguing, debating my rating system. It got so weird that I'm like, it's gone down. Like, it's a 9.2 now because of all the pushback I'm getting. So, man. See, I grew up as a C student. So a 9.3, a 93%, which is a what? It's an A. Erin would say A minus, but as a C student, though, had I ever brought a A minus home in anything, my parents would have slaughtered the fatted calf, and we would have partied for quite a long time. So, but Erin, she graduated high school with a 4.3 GPA. I mean, wow. When she first told me that, I remember thinking, hey, it's me. I mean, I unconditionally accept you. You don't have to lie. You don't have to make stuff up. Because I thought the highest was a what? A 4.0. No, apparently you can take honors classes and get an even higher GPA. I didn't know that. No one invited me into that. So for my wife, a 98, a 9.8 would have been kind of the only thing that would have been acceptable. So we debate and argue to the point where Erin finally says to me, she goes, "Oh yeah?" She goes, "I might be a 9.3, but at least I'm not a 5 like you are." But as a C student, I went, "Yeah, that's about right, yeah." Felt very comfortable. Patience with difficult people. As much as I don't want to show up as a difficult person, and I'm going to, my wife will as well, my kids will. How do we have patience with difficult people? I think really the essence that we're being told there is to allow people to be human. They're going to irritate you. However, let me qualify this idea of allowing people to be human. It's one thing to rate your wife a 9.3, which I still say is an A. Anyway, it's one thing to do that, and it's another to violate God's will or what God would say, or to do something destructive within the relationship. In this interesting verse, Proverbs 19:11 says, a person's wisdom yields patience. So what it's basically saying, your wisdom, your discernment will create patience. It's to one's glory to overlook an offense. So sometimes it makes total sense when someone misses your mark or your expectations or irritates you in a way to where you can say, you know what, I'll allow you to be human. I'm going to overlook that. But when it misses God's mark or is destructive to the relationship, patience doesn't overlook that. See, that's where we need the courage to take that to that person and say, that's not okay. We need to talk this one through. We need to get some help around this. So I'm not saying patience means, yeah, you just lay down and take whatever someone throws at you. If it misses your mark, if that was your expectation, okay, you can overlook that. But boy, if that's against what God wants, or if that's a destruction to our relationship, let's be courageous enough to go and work that out with them. So slow to anger, that means patience. So we allow people to be human. Another attribute of God is that he's gracious. So the essence of gracious is grace. So God talks all about grace. In 1 Peter 4:10 it says, as each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. So grace is the free and unmerited favor of God. It's manifested through the salvation of sinners, but it also includes the bestowal of blessing. So as we sang this morning, praise God from whom all what? Blessings flow. See, a part of how God exercises grace, not only did he offer salvation through his son, as we believe and accept Jesus into our heart, we're reunited with God. So that's a huge, awesome part of grace. But an ongoing part of grace is just a continuation of this bestowal of blessings, from whom all blessings flow. One of my favorite examples within my own family of this idea of bestowal of blessing, which means that we offer someone a gift, a valuable gift, something of honor we give away. That's what the bestowal of blessing means. My middle daughter, Murphy, she's now 27, time she was 4. And Murphy's prized possession in life was a little Beanie Baby. Remember those little Beanie Babies that we all bought as parents thinking we'll be millionaires someday? Yeah, remember those? Yeah, we had several. One was called Gracie. She was a praying bunny named Gracie. Murphy loved that thing. It just, you can, his parents, right? That blanket or a stuffed animal, and we get that. Just it's their prized possession. When they lose it, there's chaos, all of that. So one day, we were living in Missouri. We're flying out here to go to Disneyland. So, I finally get everybody in the car, all the luggage, and I realize, where's Murphy? And so I'm thinking, well, this is odd. And all of a sudden, Murphy comes running out, holding Gracie in her hand, going, Daddy, don't worry, I found her. And I'm thinking, how did she find her? I hid Gracie because I didn't want Murphy to bring Gracie because I know that she'd leave her on the plane or lose her. And we'd be, spending our time, instead of Disneyland, we'd be at the mall somewhere. So I wanted her to leave Gracie home. I don't know how she found her. She found her. There she is, running to the car. I got Gracie. And so I get out and I go, hey, whoa, Murph. I said, hey, I see you found Gracie. And I'm thinking, how? But either way, there she is. And she's like, I know, it was under all this pile of stuff. And, but I found her. And so I'm thinking, man, I got to convince this child to leave her most prized possession home, which isn't easy. So she's running right to me. So I really didn't have time to think about how I would do this. But I said, hey, Murph, you got to leave Gracie home. Why? Well, I went, I'll tell you why. I said, the airline. Honey, the airline. They only allow so much weight and baggage, and unfortunately, Gracie's going to put us over the limit. And my wife is going, what? I'm like, that's as good as it gets, all right? Leave me alone. Even Murphy was like looking at Gracie, looking at me like, I don't feel like it'll be Gracie that it puts us over the weight limit, but whatever. She's like, no, I got to bring her. No, you got to leave her home. We're arguing, debating, this power struggle going on. She's crying, begging. Honey, we got to go. Seriously, you got to go put her back. Big tears. Daddy, can I ask one more question? Fine. What? She goes, are we going to have fun at Disneyland? And I said, well, honey, in their brochure, it says it's the happiest place on earth. And I'm explaining how much fun we're going to have and the rides and all of this. And I say, so go put Gracie back so we can get going. Again, big, huge tears. She's just staring at Gracie. And she goes, Daddy, I love Gracie so much that if that's how much fun we're going to have, that I want you to take Gracie and I'll stay home. Yeah, what do you say to that? Oh my goodness. I looked at my wife for help and she's just shaking her head. Throw down the shovel, stop digging. I just picked them both up and said, Murph, I don't know what I was thinking. It wouldn't be the same trip without you and Gracie. Buckled them in, off we went. Don't pay attention to how I parent, that'll mess you up. Notice, though, Murphy, in that moment, see, that was the bestowal, a blessing. That's taking something that you value. She had a ticket on a plane and into Disneyland that she was willing to give up to little Gracie because that's how much she loved her. That's what God does for us. That's what we're wanting to do. So what does that then practically look like within our relationships, especially around connection? I believe that part of that bestowal of blessing can be that we give people in those moments that they're confusing or showing up in ways that we don't like, we can give them the benefit of the doubt. It seems like I know what you're doing, but maybe I could be wrong. Help me to understand what's going on here. The benefit of the doubt, man, that's a bestowal of blessing. I think another way that grace can show up as a bestowal, a blessing within a relationship, is when we choose to see people for who they've been over the course of time versus for how they're showing up in a moment. I mean, there's times that I don't like how Erin shows up, but she certainly won't like how I show up at different times. But I've known my wife for 35 years, been married to her for 32, and it's a bestowal of blessing when I choose to go, okay, Erin, I know who you've been. I know those patterns. I don't like the moment. I don't like how you're showing up now. But honestly, I know who you are, and I choose to focus more on that. I think that's a way that we can exercise grace within our relationships, and that creates that safety. Patience, grace. Let's talk about this idea of compassion. I love this as a concept. God's so compassionate with us. Sympathy is when we feel bad for people. I can see that you're hurting, and as a human, I feel bad for that. But on a whole different level is when you feel bad with people, when you join into their hurt and their pain and their suffering. I know often when my wife would just be, whatever was going on and she would get very emotional, I would often feel just very uncomfortable around her emotions. I didn't know what to do with my own emotions, much less hers. She would get all emotional. What do you think I would say to her? She's really emotional, and I would say, calm down. Hey, you need to relax. You're out of control here emotionally. What woman loves it when someone tells you to relax and to calm down? Don't say that. And what was simply going on for me is that I felt so uncomfortable with her emotions. I was trying to control her. You calm down so that I feel better. That's not who I want to be. It's not who I want to be with my kids when they're hurting. Man, I want to join in. I want to do exactly what Jesus did. Shortest verse in the Bible. Who knows that one? Yeah, right? Jesus wept. Do you know why he was weeping? Do you remember? Right. His good buddy Lazarus had just died. So we get to the family. Of course, they're grieving, they're mourning, they're heartbroken, they're crying, they're weeping. And what's always fascinating me about that story, I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but how does Jesus end up fixing the problem of Lazarus' death? What does he do? Raises him from the dead. Would you say that that's probably one of the greatest solutions you've ever heard? Yeah, I mean, that's impressive. Wow, that's amazing. So armed with that, I believe that Jesus knew exactly what he was going to do. It's not like he was just sitting there going, I feel so bad for this family. That's so sad. I wish I hadn't been so late. Oh, wait, that's right. I'm the Son of God. Wait, I get totally right. I mean, he didn't. He knew. So armed with that greatest solution, it's always fascinating to me. Why didn't Jesus say to this family, hey, everybody, eyes on me. I'm here. I got this. Give me about 5 minutes. I'm going to blow your mind. He could have, right? Nothing wrong with that. Teddy Roosevelt, a president of ours, said that people don't care what you know until they know that you care. And I wonder if that's part of the lesson there. That family didn't care in that moment how he was going to fix it. They didn't care what Jesus knew. They wanted to know that he cared, and he joined in. He hurt and wept with them. And I've often wondered, is that a part of the lesson? That's the gift that we can offer. That's another bestowing of blessing when we come alongside and enter into people's pain and their hurt. We don't try to fix it. We just care. And I'm with you. Let's just hurt together. I don't got to fix anything. I don't need to solve. I don't need to get you to calm down. I'm just going to be emotional with you. I'm just going to hurt with you. Jesus does that. I want to do that. Patience, grace, compassion, and this last idea of abounding in love. Abounding in love, abounding is a great word. It means two things. Part of what abounding means is an abundance. So there's an abundance of something, an overflow of something. And then the other part of that is never ending. So you think about God and how many times we're told that not only does he love us, but he loves us with this abundance of love. For God so loved the world. Not just that I love the world, but I so love. The word beloved that we're referred to so many times in the scriptures means much loved. Not just loved, but much loved. There's an abundance of God's love that we're constantly being reminded about. And that love is never ending. For I will never leave you nor forsake you. I've loved you with an everlasting love. We quoted from Psalms 23. That he is beside us. We know that you're with us, God with us. That's a part of how we create safety within relationships. There's security within my relationship with God because he says, man, I'm with you. I want my kids, I want my wife to know. I always tell them, I'm with you till the end. I'm not going anywhere. There's nothing that you can do that will change that love that I have for you. I'm with you. Just like God reminds us, I want to do that because that creates a security within the relationship. Security opens hearts. Safety, safe and secure is what opens hearts. So let's add all these together. Let's put them together. So remember that connection that we all long for, that depth in friendships happens not because of the activities that we do, but because we understand that people want to be deeply known, deeply seen. And the only way that they're going to risk being vulnerable like that is if they feel safe. Safety is the hack. How do we create relationships, marriages, families that feel like the safest place on earth? When we take grace and patience. So grace, the bestowal of blessings, patience, allowing people to be human. We add that in, right, with a compassion. I'm just going to hurt with you. And tie all that together with this idea of a never-ending love, a lifelong commitment, grace and patience and compassion and commitment create homes and relationships and families that feel like the safest place on earth. Within that, people will open to you, and intimacy and connection will just happen naturally, effortlessly. Instead of putting all this effort into finding the right formula of activity, we really don't need to do that. That can accentuate safe relationships, but activities will never create safety. And that was the light bulb for me. That's what was missing in my relationship and my connection with my wife. She just didn't feel safe with me. And the more I've focused on that, the more access that I've gotten to her heart, to my kids, their heart. And that's where true connection honestly happens. 6 times within the Bible, we're told of what God does for us, these words that we just unpacked. Man, I want to do that same thing. Would you stand with me? Here's your homework. If you're brave enough and willing, pick a marriage, pick kids, pick a friendship, pick something that matters to you and you want that connection. And just simply ask them to fill out and answer sort of the statement, I feel safe when you fill in the blank, ... See, that will create, not only we know what God's done, but let's really customize this, that in these unique relationships, I feel safe. My wife could say, Greg, I feel safe with you when you. My kids could say, Dad, I feel safe with you when you. And that's the stuff that I want to learn. I encourage you, make this practical for those relationships that matter to you the most. And be willing to ask that question. Just listen, man, write that down, put it on the notes in your phone. Review that, pray that back. God, let me do this. Lord, we stand before you with thankful hearts, God. We're so grateful that you love us enough that you want a relationship with us. Lord, you want access to our heart. You could have all that. You have that power and capability, but you want us to choose to open to you. God, thank you for that. Thank you for creating a relationship with us that will be the safest we'll ever experience, Lord. And I know for some of us, Lord, that's scary. It's easier to sit behind a wall and to wall off our heart, Lord, than it is to even open to you. But Lord, thanks for the reminder that you are safe. God, give us the courage and just that full understanding, that awareness, know that you are safe. Lord, help us risk to open to you, Lord. Teach us how to create safe relationships, Lord, because we want access to people's heart. We want to see them and know them fully. God, we want that. So, Lord, help us do that. May that we be a church, Lord, that has the safest relationships, Lord, here in this area, God. We're so grateful for you, Lord. Thank you for your word and the truth within it. We ask these things in your precious name. Amen.